Hello, everyone. I am Sunday. Some very few of you may remember me from pre-election when I was trying to educate people about Project 2025. Post-election, Hubs and I had to regroup, figure some shit out, figure out where we're going, what we want to do, what we think, so on and so forth. And 4 months later, here I am. I'm not specifically here to educate anyone now. I'd rather talk about politics in America. Specifically, I want to talk to you as someone who has been an independent voter for most of the last 30 years, i.e., most of my adult life. Being an independent voter means that I'm not beholden to either political party. For most of my adult life, the Democratic Party has appeared the more sane because they haven't been the ones with a mission to take over the minds, hearts, and bodies of the entire American populace, which the Republicans have been doing since roughly 1983. All you understand in the name of winning because their policies are the best, right? My goal going forward is to talk about the things that someone who's kind of an everyday Jane American sees happening around her and the responses I see to it and the differences between the reality and the social media blow up of those responses, as well as I intend to take a very, very harsh look at both parties in America. I intend to hold both parties' feet to the fire and talk about the actions and pretty much everything that has been allowed to happen to bring us to the state. I also intend to talk about the things that we, the people, have forgotten about, specifically our rights, which are secured with particular responsibilities. We have, over the last 30 or 40 years, abdicated most of those responsibilities in order to enjoy the privilege of the rights. But those will all be other videos. Today, I want to focus on 2015 and the DNC. And the reason I want to focus on that is because I don't know how many of you were paying attention during that time, but the DNC chose to nominate Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders because they wanted the identity vote of the black vote. Now, what I want to point out about Bernie Sanders was the outrage that was expressed across America when Hillary was selected as the nominee instead of Bernie. Specifically, I want to point to the fact that for most of his political career, Bernie Sanders has been an advocate for we the people, specifically we who are the working class. And by the way, don't you really appreciate that euphemism for lower class? We're not the lower class anymore. We're the working class. So what happened is an email showed that the DNC and Debbie Wasserman Schultz had a particular bias against Bernie because he was too progressive and he didn't always play within the DNC confines and he was disruptive. And so there was definite bias against him. Now, all of that's water under the bridge at this point, but I want to ask you one question, and I want you to really think about this, okay? Considering Bernie Sanders' pro-union stance, and considering the fact that he has been an advocate for universal health care for as long as I can remember, and consider the fact that he has been a champion for those of us who struggle to put food on our tables every week for most of his political career, I want to ask you one question. The question I want to ask you is, had Bernie won that nomination, would we be where we are now? And the reason I'm asking that is because at that time, Bernie, with the working population, was far more popular than Trump has become because Trump had not had time yet to establish his base. Would J6 have happened? Would we have chased away all of our allies and ended up in this trade war that's going to affect us the most? America has been touted as the leader of the free world. We're not a sane nation anymore. I posit we are no longer the leader of the free world in any way, shape, or form. The truth, though, is that while America has been strong militarily and industrially, we've sucked when it comes to caring for the people. I mean, let's talk about the dichotomy of the richest nation in the world, whose medical system is compared to third world nations' medical systems. I don't remember when it was written, but there was a really good article in Medium about this. So that's pretty much it for this introduction or reintroduction for any of you who may have seen me previously. In closing, however, I want to send out a message to European leaders. My message begins and ends fairly simply. You cannot build a good, solid home that's going to weather all the storms and that's going to safely protect and cherish the families who reside in it if you start building that home in the middle or at the top. No building that's constructed without a good, solid foundation, where that foundation can flex, bend, stretch, and also be updated, upgraded, and repaired. Nothing can survive without that. In the entirety of the world, every nation's foundation is we the people who live, work, purchase, and pay taxes within that nation. And I hate to tell you, but the working class, the lower class, is the larger population. When you do not take care of your little people, your big people get bigger than their pants and take over everything, and you end up as America. Now, I'm going to call out the UK specifically here because Brexit happened at the same time that DJT entered our political scene. And I want to tell you that I've been following your medical and your rural people's plights for the last 5 years. Simply put, you have more illness with less practitioners, less qualified practitioners. Your healthcare has gone downhill over the last 5 people. There are more and more voices every year screaming out, what happened? What's going to happen to us? How are we going to be able to make it? And a huge portion of those cries come because you guys chose after Brexit to follow the path of privatization. Now, one of the problems with privatization is it includes normalization. And that means that people like me who don't fit within the normal medical models, well, we're just overlooked. And the point I'm making here is most of us don't fit. Over the last 3 years, I've been reading more and more stories every winter of people losing their lives out in rural areas because they can't afford fuel. So my message to you, Europe, is simple. America has abdicated our responsibility to the rest of the world so that we can become the newest totalitarian nation. Anything that you counted on us for isn't going to happen. And if it happens, it's going to come with strings attached. Unless you want to end up as Putin's newest acquisitions, I recommend you get your shit together. I recommend you center your people as your most valuable resource. You build up your lower working class. You make sure that everybody has the same opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness as everyone else. And you make sure that the wealthy continue paying their part into the system. I urge and implore you not to ignore the people who have been traditionally considered the least among us. Coming back to America, what does Sunday say? Sunday says it is time for we the people to center ourselves politically again. And I've got thoughts on that. Peace out, y'all.